for our side event of this morning, and apologies for starting this side event a bit late. It's running in parallel with another side event across the other room, and in such kind of circumstances, it's not always easy to start on time. So today we're gathering here to discuss important questions and issues related to the meaningful refugee participation, where we will be hearing from refugee organizations mostly based in Africa, but we also have a discussion who's joining us here from Geneva. I'll be shortly introducing them, but please allow me to say a few introductory remarks about this side event, how we started planning this, and how we will continue. And there is a very important story I'd like to share with you today as part of opening this side event. And let me start by telling you a story of the colleague whose picture you could see from the screen. Her name is Delin Ramiro. You might have seen already from Palexpo and from the online circulation of information about the GRF. I would say she has now become one of the poster childs of the GRF event of this year. And the sad part of the story is, however, she was meant to be with us here today as one of the co-panelists. In fact, she was one of the co-organizers of this side event, but she was not able to travel because her application for visa has been rejected by the Swiss Embassy in Nairobi. I'm mentioning this because this is the context in which many refugee organizations are operating, and when we gather for an event like this, I think it's important for us to reflect and ask critical questions as to what is a GRF, which is not accessible to people like Delin. Delin is a dear friend of ours. She is the operations and partnerships lead at Solidarity Initiative for Refugees in Kakuma Refugee Camp in East Africa. She is also a member of the Refugee Advisory Board of the organization I represent. I'll be saying a few things about my organization in a short while. And of course, she was also one of the co-organizers of this side event. But it's not only Delin who is not joining us today. All these other three colleagues who were also the initial co-organizers of this side event are not together with us today here. And I would like to mention their names and the organizations they represent by way of expressing our solidarity for their predicament. This is everything about shifting power. This is everything about meaningful refugee participation. And those colleagues are Amin Bolis, as you can see from the screen, who is the leader of another refugee organization from Kakuma, Humanity, which is Humanity Hands. The other colleague is Stephen Wandu, the leader of another refugee organization in Uganda, known as Icon South Sudan. And of course, Delin, I've just mentioned her name now. And the fourth colleague is Vanessa Ishimwe, who is the leader of another refugee organization known as Youth Initiative for Development in Africa, based in Uganda. These were the original co-organizers of this side event, who were not able to make it to Geneva today. But thanks to the willingness and flexibility of these colleagues you see in front of us today, we managed to reassemble this side event over the last 2 weeks, and we are here today together to discuss issues of paramount importance related to meaningful refugee participation. And in saying that, colleagues and dear friends, please join me in thanking profusely our co-panelists, our discussants today, for making it possible at the 11th hour and saving our panel discussion. Thank you. Having said that, let me now introduce the speakers. But I think before I do that, I want you to reflect with me with the quote which is taken from Delin, as you can see from the screen. This is what she said in preparation hopefully for the GRF, which she didn't make it at the end of the day. I believe in the power of perseverance and the importance of working towards better future, no matter the obstacles that may stand in our way. I'm sure Darlene will continue doing this, despite the obstacles she has found herself to be in at present time. I think it's important in relation to this challenge. I would like you, as all of us, to reflect maybe during the Q&A session, more other related questions of this nature, related to the future of the GRF itself. Whether it's about time to start asking questions, why is the importance, the relevance of having GRFs in countries and places which are far away from the people that matter most, on whose behalf these events are organized? Is it about time to ask whether we need to do these events in those places in countries which are easily accessible or equally accessible to both migrants, refugees, and non-refugees alike? These are very important questions. Maybe we can reflect on these questions during the Q&A session. But before that, then I would like now to introduce our speakers, co-panelists of today. We are joined by the following people, colleagues and organizations we represent. We have Bella Nishimiri Mana, who is the co-founder and team leader of Mirror Group, based in Kampala, in Uganda. Then we have John Jan Dark Root, who is the executive director of Youth Solidarity Advocacy Team, also another RLO from Uganda. We have Nudo Laban Cheng, the director of Great Step Initiative, based in Nigeria. We have Pascal Digashane, who is the executive director of Action pour le Progrès, based in Kampala, Kenya. And finally, as a discussant, we have my dear friend Maiwen Ngalwet, I hope I'm pronouncing your name correctly, who is the co-founder and director of operations at the Refugees Advocacy Network, RAN. This is a Geneva-based RLO. He will be joining us as a discussant, where he will be reflecting on the importance of the discussion we will have today to meaningful refugee participation, to shifting power, to localization, all of which are very important topics for the GRF and anything related to responses to forced displacement. And finally, I'd like to briefly introduce myself and the organization I represent. We are here as moderators and as facilitators. We'd like to give more chance and opportunity to the panelists. So I'm Daniel McConnell. I work for COHEAR. COHEAR is a non-governmental organization working with refugees and displaced communities. And our work is primarily driven by our commitment to shifting power and transforming communities, in which context we work directly with RLOs and their host communities, mostly in the developing world. Much of our programmatic areas are concentrated in Uganda and Kenya, but we also have program areas in other countries. So our involvement in this side event is part of our commitment to meaningful refugee participation and to shifting power. And by shifting power, we mean, among other things, shifting resources to refugee organizations, because access to resources, access to funding is one of the most important manifestations of power. The more refugee organizations are empowered, the more they will become impactful in whatever they want to do in serving back their communities. Of course, if you want to know more about the work we do, and in particular, I'd like to invite you to have a look at one of our programmatic areas known as Reframe, which is an online networking platform which showcases the work of RLOs and facilitates access to partners and funders. You can scan the QR code and you are most welcome to learn more about the kind of work we do. Having said that, this is how we're going to run the panel discussion today. I'll invite our speakers now for the next few minutes to reflect on the following questions I'll be asking them. We'll have two speakers in the first part, then we will have an interlude where we will be displaying a short video showcasing some of the work of RLO partners in East Africa, and then we'll come back to the second part of the discussion where two other speakers will be reflecting their perspectives on the questions, list of questions I'll be asking, and then finally we'll invite our dear friend Maiwan to wrap up the conversation on how this is important to meaningful refugee participation in localization. And if time allows, of course, at the very end, we will also display another short musical production produced by some of our RLO partners in East Africa. So much of the conversation we're going to have today will focus on how important it is to resource refugee organizations, access to funding, all issues related to shifting power. In doing that, this is how I would like to ask all of you colleagues, particularly the panelists. I encourage you to start first by telling us more about your organizations, when you were established, when are you based, what are the kind of works you do, what are the kind of key learnings. And this is, I think, the most important point I want to emphasize. Based on key learnings from your experience, what do you think should be the role of allies, partners, intermediaries, like us and others, in promoting the ideal of meaningful refugee participation? What do you think should be done by way of improving practice in this area? Tell us what works and tell us what doesn't work. So let me start by inviting our first speaker, Cheng, and I'll be moving to the other speakers afterwards. There are different themes and topics that will be discussed by colleagues, but feel free also, you can do that in a way, in a cross-cutting nature. Now I give the floor to Cheng to share with us your perspectives. The floor is yours, Cheng.
Thank you very much.
You can come back, you can feel free if you would like to come here the way you see it fit.
Okay. So thank you very much. You're all welcome. Today is a very wonderful day and we are grateful because we finally made it here. Just as we've heard from Mr. Daniel, a lot of people would have been here also and they are not here. So if we are privileged to be among the little few that are here, then we should actually say that we're here. Although we show a lot of solidarity to our brothers and sisters who couldn't make it, and not due to any fault of theirs, but whatever be the situation, we understand that their work for humanity will not be short-circuited in any way. So I want to say my name is Cheng Laban, like my brother just explained. My name is Cheng Laban. I am originally from southern Cameroon, and I live in Nigeria as a refugee since 2018. When the government of Cameroon could no longer protect me, when I lost the protection of my home country, I needed to run and went as fast as possible to Nigeria with my family. And so, while there was a need. While there was a need, we saw a kind of a lacuna, so a kind of gap that is between the activities that were provided to us by the international organizations and UNHCR. We found a lot of gaps, and we felt that, no, instead of joining people to say, why are you doing this, why are you not doing this, we should instead put our own effort to see what we can do in order to be a kind of support to ourselves. Now, that led us to come up with an initiative called Great Step Initiative, being an organization. And with that organization, we were carrying along 4 thematic areas, which has to do with psychosocial counseling and rehabilitation. We're also doing gender-based violence. We're doing child protection, and we are doing preventive health and sanitation. There is something I want to say about these 4 thematic areas. It's not like we sat and we say, what are we going to do? It is, we're looking at the areas that were most needed, the gaps that were to be most filled in the whole operation. So our mission was just to just to improve the quality of life for first refugees and the host community members, just to improve their lives through a sustainable relief and livelihood programs. So that said, I want to say that there is something we always look into. What you see is not what everybody sees. You might be looking at a situation and you are seeing something else and another one is seeing something else. So the moment you begin to see a problem, you are put yourself in the position of a solution. Because a lot of people saw that thing, but they didn't see it as a problem. And so when they saw it, when you are seeing it as a problem, it means you are called upon to provide solution, and that becomes an engagement for you. It becomes your own kind of an employment to make sure that you change the situation. So I believe according to Mr. Dan, he said we should explain what is the rule, the rule of the mediator.
Yeah, I can rephrase it.
Yeah,
so it's we would like to hear from you. The different levels of engagement between your refugee organizations and various actors, from funders, from partners, from allies, from intermediaries. What is the kind of improvement that you'd like to see in terms of how this work is done between RLOs and funders and intermediaries and allies of various sorts? What are the areas, specific areas, you would like to see, in which you'd like to see improvement, for example?
Talking about seeing improvement is particularly in the area of meaningful participation. As a refugee and coming from a refugee-led organization setting, we've seen a lot of activities being done in the community by organizations that did not even sit down with the beneficiaries to talk about it. You just come and you implement a borehole, and by the time you finish digging the borehole, you realize that the water is salty. It becomes a wasted project. By the time you finish producing a toilet, you discover that the toilet is too close to another borehole, and that those are things that should not be so related, and the project is abandoned because the organization A had to come and produce a toilet here, and B had also made their own program to put a borehole. And by the time they're coming to put it, they don't even care to ask the people. So we really think that meaningful participation is a key as to the way funders should relate with the beneficiaries. And we actually think that when they get the beneficiaries involved in the planning, in the execution, in the monitoring, it can, whatever they are doing would actually become very sustainable, because the people who are executing this duty, or the beneficiaries, are like becoming owners of that particular project. And so they stand a chance to protect it, they stand a chance to see it sustained, and they stand a chance to see it fulfill the purpose for which it was intended. Because during the meaningful participation, it was the people who said, oh, our problem is this. And if you say this is our problem, and the problem is and the solution is provided to you, you handle it with care and with all put in place everything that can secure it. However, one of the things that Mr. Dan asked me to talk about is about livelihood. As far as livelihood is concerned in the area of refugees and the people who are the most vulnerable in our community, I want to say that I started by saying Great Step Initiative, one of our thematic areas is psychosocial counseling and rehabilitation. And we came up with this because we discovered that most people, or almost everybody, that came to, or that ran from Cameroon to Nigeria as a refugee was traumatized. And because we were traumatized, a lot of activities, like some kind of a livelihood activity that were given to people, they mishandled it. For instance, people were given machines to learn how to sew, and they sold the machines. They were given hairdressing equipment, and they sold the equipment right in front of the donors. So we now began to see that there is a need to do psychosocial counseling among ourselves, so much so that people should realize that being a refugee is not an end, but it's just a phase in life, and that you can move on. So I see it from being, when you empower refugees, you give them the opportunity to have some kind of self-esteem. Now, by being self-esteem, they will be able to take care of their own things without definitely depending on people. They will be able to understand that, oh, I can equally take care of my child's school fee, I can feed my family, it gives you a kind of dignity, and it takes away that trauma from you, because when you need to sit for somebody to give you, it becomes a very difficult situation. I just want to say again that providing refugees livelihood would also help them attain social support and community integration. This is because this livelihood, when it is provided, it makes you, the refugee, if it is in the area of business, you need to move out and buy, come and sell, or you buy from the community, go and sell out there. It makes you not to integrate with the people of the host community. And I would want to say, coming from from Nigeria, that there was a particular moment where there were some hostilities between the refugee community and the host communities, particularly in Benue State. But when refugees are given this livelihood, and this livelihood incorporates members of the host community, it means if they were trained in the area of hairdressing, like what Kohe has assisted us to do, which we are doing quite right away, hairdressing, soap making, and ice cream production. It is all a combination of both refugees and host community. And so this brings the aspect of a peaceful coexistence between the two communities. The hostilities are no longer noticed again. Now, and I want to say, like Daniel said about financial stability, it's all about financial stability. When somebody knows that he has a kind of, when you are empowered, when you are given a source of livelihood, you know they have a financial stability to take care of your own things, it gives you some kind of mental balance. You move with courage, and you feel free to do what you think you can do. And it also helped because some of these refugees, before becoming refugees, they were professionals in one way or the other. Some, now when we come and we are providing livelihood to them, at times it's important to ask, what do you do? Let's say in the area of individual capacity or individual livelihood support. You may be asked, the people may be asked what have been their strength. There are some who have been in Cameroon as nurses, some have been as other in different walks of life. So when they are asked like that and they are given something in line with what they were doing, or if they are willing to learn new skills, when they are the people who propose their own kind of things that they can do, and it falls within what the donor had in his mind, that particular activity can become very, very sustainable, and it will actually stand the test of time. And I want to say, since there are other panelists here, I give the floor to the other people.
Thank you very much, Ken. That was very insightful intervention. And I hope we will come back to some of the important items we discussed in the Q&A session. Moving to the next speaker, I would like to remind you something I didn't mention before. Normally, I have allocated 10 minutes for each speaker. If we slightly run out of time, I'll remind you in the interest of time. No, it's not that it took too much, but we started slightly later and we are a bit running out of time. And just to emphasize on that. So our next speaker is Bella. Based on the same question as I asked previously, I would want you to start by introducing your organization, the kind of work you are doing, and how this work is important. For example, I know your organization works on areas related to empowerment of women and girls. That's a very important aspect of the work you do. But at the end of the day, how do you see, how do we move to the next level of improving practice with questions related to access to resources? The question of direct, quality, multi-year, accessible funds to refugees. What is your perspective? What is the perspective of your organization from these angles? Now I invite you to take the floor, Bella.
Thank you very much, Mr. Daniel, and I'm humbled to be here, the COHEA session. And my name is Bella Shimirimana, as you said. I'm a Burundian by nationality, a refugee in Uganda. I'm a student in Bangor University, UK. I'm doing my master's in public health and health promotion, and I attended this GRF to continue the advocacy on how refugees can have access to quality education. As you said, I'm the co-founder of Mira Group Network and team lead. Mira Group Network started in 2014. The idea to found the Mira Group Network was, during that time, it was very, very difficult for refugees to have access to funding. And also, it was very difficult to have access to services, especially for refugees in urban settings. And the main idea was that women and girls, they were having a lot of challenges, and they were, not only women and girls, even the youth at large. You could find that they were having, these are the people that they were vulnerable because most of them were under drug addicts. Like some of women and girls, they were convicted to prostitutions, alcohol. So for us, we realized that as being a refugee, that is not the end of our life. We are supposed to do something that tomorrow, if I'm to go back, I will be, someone important job I can create impact within my community. So we started this Mira Group Network to make sure that we can provide entrepreneurship skills, because empowering people is you better give them, skills, give them knowledge, give them information so that they can do decision making. Be informed in order to do decision making. So now in Mira Group, what we do entrepreneurship skills through tailoring skills. We provide tailoring skills. We do art and craft. We do also organize women and girls to be in the saving schemes to make sure that they can have access to small loans. These small loans, they help them to go and start small businesses whereby they cannot start, being idle. And also another thing that we do engage youth into cultural performances. In Uganda, we are known as the king of drums. Yes, we use the Burundian drums to promote our culture, to promote, this peaceful coexistence between refugees and the host community. In brief, that is what Mira Group does. And our vision is to make sure that we are empowering women and girls so that they can be self-reliant. Thank you.
Thank you very much. That was very insightful brief, but insightful intervention, Bella. So how do you, just a brief follow-up for that, you're now currently based in the UK.
Yes.
It's still in touch with the organization that is still working in Uganda. Thank you very much. We will return to some of the other questions and comments during the Q&A session. I'd like now to invite you, we'll have an interlude, a short break, where we will watch one of the documentaries produced by our partner organization in East Africa. This is actually the organization of Delim Ramiro, the colleague whom I mentioned at the beginning of this side event. Let's have a look at that, and then we'll come back to the second part of our conversation, where I'll be inviting Pascal and John also to reflect on their own experiences. I'll be starting the Yes.